Look, everyone's obsessing over the same names right now. Kyle Tucker this, Bo Bichette that. Maybe Edwin Diaz joins the mix. Yet those are huge potential signings, but here is what nobody's talking about. There are other free agents out there who could absolutely transform this roster without all the noise and attention. Today, I am breaking down 3 realistic Blue Jays targets that are flying completely under the radar, but honestly, they should be front and center in Toronto's plans. These guys are attainable, impactful, and frankly, perfect fits. Let's dive in first up, Michael King. I am genuinely shocked more people aren't screaming his name from the rooftops right now. We're hearing endless chatter about Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, all those Tier 1 starters everyone's chasing. But Michael King, crickets. And that's absolutely insane because this guy might actually be better than some of those big names everyone's drooling over. King's 30 years old, heading into next season, and last year he posted a 3.44 ERA through 73 innings. Now, those innings are lower than you'd want because he dealt with an injury. Went down in May, came back briefly in August for a couple innings, then shut it down again. But here is the critical part. Word is that injury won't carry over into next season. He should be completely healthy, ready to roll. That changes everything. What I love about Michael King is the consistency. Go back and look at his track record since 2021. The worst RAR he's posted is 3.55. Yeah, I know he wasn't always a starter during that stretch. He transitioned from the bullpen gradually, but when he became a full-time starter in 2024, absolutely electric. We're talking 173.2 innings with a 2.95 ARR. That's exactly what you want anchoring your rotation. Toronto should be all over this guy, and I guarantee they're at least having conversations. Looking at his arsenal, he's got a sinker, four-seamer, changeup, sweeper, and slider. It's not overpowering 100-mile-per-hour heat. But that's not what makes him special. He locates everything. Command is elite. The only place I've really seen anyone connecting Toronto to King is over at Blue Jays Nation, and they're absolutely right when they say he should be their top starting pitcher target. Here is why that makes perfect sense. King doesn't have massive mileage on his arm despite being 30, under 500 career innings because he spent those first 5 years in the Yankees bullpen. His arm is fresh. He's not going to break down. And here is the really interesting part. King might be open to a short-term deal with an opt-out after next season. That's perfect for Toronto. You want to win now while this championship window is wide open. If you can lock King down for 5 or 6 years, fantastic. But if he wants a 1 or 2 year prove-it deal, or even 3 to 5 years with an early opt-out, take it. If he dominates, he can test free agency again. If not, you've still got him locked in. Either way, you are getting an elite starter without completely destroying your payroll, and Protract projects him at 4 years, $91 million. But if he's looking at shorter term because of last year's injury and wants to rebuild his market value, maybe you land him at 1 year, $23 million. That would be highway robbery for a pitcher of his caliber. And just to hammer home how legitimately good he is, check this out. Only 7 pitchers have thrown at least 400 innings with an ERA under 3 since 2022. Michael King is one of them. You have the names: Harry Skubal, Jose Berrios, Blake Snell, Clayton Kershaw, Max Fried, Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler. That's the company he keeps. That's elite territory. Toronto needs to be picking up the phone right now. Now let's talk infield. Everyone's focused on Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette. But what happens if Bo walks? What if he signs with the Dodgers or someone else goes crazy with an offer Toronto can't match? You can't just throw up your hands and quit. You need a contingency plan, and Jorge Polanco is exactly that. Polanco spent almost all of last season playing second base for Seattle, which is perfect because that's where Toronto would need him if Bo leaves, and he crushed it. We're talking .821 OPS, 78 RBIs, 26 homers, 130 full OPS plus. Those are legitimately strong numbers. His career track record backs it up too. This isn't some flash-in-the-pan season. Anyone who watched the playoffs knows how dangerous Polanco was. He absolutely tortured Toronto's pitching staff in that series. Every time he stepped up, you held your breath. Now, I'll be honest, he's not winning Gold Glovers. His defense is average at best, but neither is Bo Bichette, right? If you are losing Bo, you want a bat that can produce, and Polanco delivers. His offensive metrics from last year were excellent across the board. If Toronto misses on Bichette, they absolutely need to be talking to Polanco's agent, and I am not alone in thinking this. The Sporting News reported that Seattle wants him back, but both Toronto and Boston are lurking. Makes total sense. Red Sox might want him if they lose Alex Bregman. Blue Jays might want him if they lose Bo. Think about this scenario. You lose Bo, but you bring in Michael King to upgrade the rotation. Yeah, you take a slight offensive hit, replacing Bo with Polanco, but you've improved your pitching dramatically. Then, maybe you add another bat elsewhere. You are still competing for a championship. That's the key here. Losing Bo shouldn't mean waving the white flag. You adapt, you adjust, you keep pushing, and Polanco, at 3 years, $44 million, that's $14.6 million per year for a 134 OPS plus bat. That's value. Plus, you are stealing him from Seattle, who's going to be battling Toronto all season for playoff positioning. You are weakening a competitor while strengthening yourself. I'd obviously prefer keeping Bo and adding Tucker, but if those bigger dominoes fall elsewhere, Polanco is an outstanding backup. Finally, let's talk about someone nobody's mentioning at all, Zach Gallen. Radio silence around this guy, probably because he had a rough year. 4.83 ERA across 192 innings. Not great, I'll admit, but everyone seems to be forgetting how legitimately dominant Gallen was before last season. Look at his 3-year stretch before 2024. 184 innings, 210 innings, 148 innings, with a combined 3.2 odd ERA. There was a time when people ranked him as a top 15 starter in baseball. One bad year and suddenly he's invisible? That's ridiculous. Here is what makes Gallen especially interesting for Toronto. They already tried to trade for him. Remember the 2025 deadline? Gallen was one of the hottest names available, and Toronto was the overwhelming favorite to land him. There were serious back and forth talks with Arizona. It didn't happen, but clearly Toronto likes him. They were willing to give up assets to get him mid-season. Why wouldn't they consider giving him a contract now? Spotrac projects him at 4 years, $75 million. That's about $18.7 million. Annually? For a guy who can throw 200 quality innings when healthy, that's completely reasonable for Toronto's budget. I know last season was rough, but look at his entire body of work. That has to be the outlier, the multiple seasons of excellence. That's who Gallen really is. I'm not saying he'll be a Cy Young candidate again, but 185 innings with an ERA around his career mark of 3.58, totally achievable. And at that price point, you absolutely take that gamble. Think about what Toronto's rotation could look like. You add King and Gallen to Gausman, Barrios, and whoever else they're bringing in. Suddenly, you've got legitimate depth and quality. Arms eating innings all season long. That's how you stay healthy and competitive over 162 games. That's how you make a real playoff run without your starters being gassed by October just 3 targets. King, Polanco, and Gallen aren't getting the headlines. They're not the shiny objects everyone's chasing, but they're real links. Toronto can actually